Praised be, what's up? And today I'm going to do a review of the very new Handmaid's Tale Season 2. So, last season got released last year, won an Emmy for Outstanding Drama Series, which Nerd Writer had predicted. I love it a lot. Also, I gave it a 9.1, as I recall. Ended up as my number 5 favorite shows of the year, and I should have ranked it higher because it's actually really good. But still, it wasn't the very best TV show. So anyway, June Osborne and all the fertile women of Gilead, formerly USA, were sort of enslaved and turned into handmaids who were supposed to help infertile women give birth by having sex with the infertile woman's husband, aka getting raped. There are also people such as Aunt Lydia, who was sort of the crazy mother figure of the handmaids. We have Max, who was an eye, aka a spy, but he's actually a good guy, and this rhymes. The infertile woman was Serena Williams. Her husband is Fred Waterford. June's husband is Lucas Bankel, who managed to escape to Canada a couple years ago. June's friend Moira also managed to escape after being a prostitute for a year or two, and the whole set has this religious Catholic Gothic feel to it that's really dystopian and dark. Episode 1 is June, and wow, what an intense season opening. And I like how the show is being treated like a novel, which it was adapted from. Adapted from. That's because the opening few scenes feel more like reading a book than actually watching the show. All the handmaids were gathered around and were punished brutally. And it's really intense, but of course, it's not the end for June. Later in the hospital, June found a key and unlocked a door and escaped. Great. And without any build-up leading to it, she had finally escaped with the help of Max. Why am I stuttering all the time? Anyway, there's a scene where she burns her clothes, cut her hair, and cuts her ear in order to remove everything Gilead related. That's a gruesome scene. Ew. But other than that, I wish her escape has a bit more build up and less extraneous and random scenes. Still a solid season opener. Episode 2, Unwoman, feels like a completely different episode from any previous episode I've ever watched in the show so far. So if you don't know what happened on episode 1, minor spoiler alert, cause June broke free finally. And then she's sent to an abandoned building that is the Boston Globe building. And then we have Emily, who's in the colonies, which is a very broken, dirty, disgusting place. The production of this episode is insane, by the way. And we see Emily's painful life over there and a few flashbacks of her. It's okay, it's a bit slow, but still quite interesting. And then back to the Boston Globe. We have a few more sex scenes between June and Nick, and another painful scene with the bullet holes on the wall. And this episode just leaves me with even more curiosity, because I'm so curious about what happens next. Moving on to episode 3, Baggage. Another excellently written episode that doesn't feel like the 2 previous episodes at all. And once again, it feels longer than it is, in a great way. So now June had to move on and leave the Boston Globe, and then June went into a small little abandoned warehouse full of street signs, and then a man named Adam was supposed to pick her up and bring her to a safe house, except the safe house wasn't safe, so June begged Adam to bring her to his house, and it worked. I also like how Adam was Catholic in the public, but secretly Muslim. Not only we see people fight against sexism, but also religious discrimination. And then crazy stuff's happened. June had made a terrible mistake that I would definitely not make because it's too bold and ballsy. And then June had her consequences, which is devastating, and I'm giving a spoiler alert. So June was supposed to wait in Adam's house while Adam and his family was supposed to come back to the house a few hours later, but no one came back. So June disguised herself as someone like Adam's wife and traveled all the way to where she and Hannah got caught, which is very ballsy. I wouldn't do that. I would just wait for Adam, however long it takes. And then June got into a plane and found a pilot who's willing to sneak her out to Canada, and then gunshots were heard, people died, and she's captured. Oh shit, what a cliffhanger. Episode 4 is titled Other Woman, which is an unexpectedly dull episode. Not that it's bad, in fact, it's decent, but with a cliffhanger that devastating last episode, this episode feels a bit underwhelming. So June's not free again, and she's a handmaid again, but since she's pregnant, she didn't get tortured or anything, everything's a-okay. And this episode also repeated a few plot points that had been written last season, like June pissing Serena off and June ignoring Nick. So I don't care for this episode, not really. Then it's episode 5, Seeds, which is another episode similar to the previous one, except with a bit more tension. We finally get to see Emily and Janine again in such a gruesome and broken place. It's so refreshing to see such an optimistic person like Janine in such situation. However, I really don't understand that June, for some reason, was playing very nice and obedient all of a sudden, and then at the end, she's actually just pretending the whole time, so what for? I'm kind of confused about that. Moving on to episode 6, First Blood, which is a pretty average nice little Handmaid's Tale episode until the last scene, which is pretty mind-blowing. Though I'm happy for June for being able to see a photo of Hannah, I think it's a pretty sweet scene. The last scene really topped it off. And it happened so quickly, I wish there's more of a build-up. Then it's episode 7, After. Of course it's going to be titled After. Duh. It's a neat little episode, not gonna lie. But there are a few downs, though. Like, there's a scene where a Martha got shot, and I thought it's Rita who got shot, which is pretty weird, because it would be a very underwhelming way for her to die. But apparently Rita was alive, but we didn't see her anywhere on this episode after that scene, so it's kind of confusing. And there's this Commander Cushing who became the new head of security and was interrogating June, and then on the same episode he got busted and now he's not the head of security again. I feel like he could potentially be a great villain and the show could stretch this storyline for an episode more. But I really love the scene where June's telling every handmaid her real name, and every handmaid did that to every other handmaids. It's a really warm and inspiring scene, but there's that. And the ending where Serena gave June a pen and June clicked the pen acts as a parallel to that click of a bomb last episode. I think that's pretty smart. Episodes 8, 9, and 10 are 3 very thrilling, eventful, and solid episodes that have completely different storylines in each one of them, but all of them are still impactful and shocking, and I'm hella impressed. Episode 8 is titled Woman's Work, which is where Janine's baby got sick and everyone was super worried, so June got Serena's help to secretly smuggle a Martha, who's formerly a doctor, into the hospital to check the baby. It's good to see how Janine loves her baby, and Naomi was nicer to her, and Aunt Lydia loves babies as well, so that's pretty cool. And then we have the ending of the episode, which is pretty intense. I'm giving a spoiler alert. So in order to bust Commander Cushing and smuggle the Martha, Serena had to do stuffs on behalf of Commander Fred Waterford. Fred found out and summoned June and Serena to his office, and then he took out his belt and whipped Serena multiple times. Yes, it is cruel and brutal, but if you look at it in another angle, Serena really committed a felony and Fred didn't even want to hurt Serena in the first place. But he had to, because, laws. But anyway, it was a painful scene to watch. Then it's episode 9, Smart Power, which is even more special of an episode, because this is perhaps the only time that Fred, Serena, and Nick cross paths with Luke and Moira at the same time, because Gilead paid a visit to Canada, and that makes up for some interesting interactions, including Serena seeing the free world again and meeting a person who represents the then American government, who tried to help her escape, but Serena kind of refused because she's patriotic. And we have Luke meeting Nick. Nick told him about June and gave him the letters, and Luke told Nick about Moira, and that's another example of a glimpse of hope in the midst of hopelessness. Moving over to episode 10, The Last Ceremony. Oh my gosh, this episode is even more insane because it is packed with all sorts of scenes that blow me away. Should I give a spoiler alert? Yes, I should. So, if you haven't watched this episode, you feel free to skip. So June had contractions, and everyone thought she's about to give birth. Turns out it didn't happen, and Serena was mad. So the only way to force the baby to come out in a natural way was for the commander to have sex with June again. Shit. And there's a scene where June was summoned to the room, and Serena held onto June's arms as Freddy brutally raped her. Probably the darkest and most terrifying rape scene I've ever watched on TV. I'm 15, by the way. It was such a shocking scene, and then it follows a scene where Eden has an affair with another guardian while Nick watched nonchalantly. Eden immediately ran back to Nick and confessed, but the tables kind of turned around, and when Eden saw that Nick didn't care and blamed Nick for not loving her, which is kind of true. And then on the next scene, it jumped from the dark low to a bright high with the scene that we've been waiting for since the first episode of the series. June finally got to meet Hannah face to face. It was emotional, I almost teared up, and then after a reluctant exit, June and Nick stayed at the meetup location, and then suddenly someone spotted Nick. June hid and Nick got shot and was taken away, which leaves June in the wilderness and us with a cliffhanger. What a smart way to end. The next episode is titled Holly, which is sort of a bottleneck episode similar to Breaking Bad's Fly, because it all took place in one location, mostly. I was very curious what happened to Nick, but hey, this is the episode. What? This episode is still fine for me. Okay, I typed something wrong. It's a typo. So after what happened at last episode, June was inside this huge empty house, alone. She tried to pack her things and leave. She found a car, but she couldn't get the garage door open, so she was still stuck. And then Fred and Serena came, of course, looking for June, but June hid and they couldn't find her, but they knew that she was there. And they were very, very furious. I don't think I've ever heard Fred swear, to be honest. It's new. Then after they leave, June had contractions again, and it got worse and worse, and eventually she actually had to give birth to her child all by herself, alone, with no one around, and that's fucking nuts. And that scene is painfully memorable. Moving over to episode 12, Postpartum, which skips ahead. We see June being in the Red Center again, and Nick being back, and Serena and Fred having Holly, but they called her Nicole. It's not a bad episode, but it's also not that special. The biggest scene in the entire episode is the whole Eden thing, so again, I'm giving a spoiler alert. Since June told Eden to find real love, and since Nick doesn't love Eden, Eden cheated on Nick and went off with Isaac, which is another bodyguard or guardian or or someone, and people found out. Shit. So they found Eden and Isaac and captured them, locked them onto heavy chains, and was going to throw them into the swimming pool and drown them. And people were watching, including Nick, June, and Serena. And of course, Eden didn't confess to her sins, and instead he recited another line from the Bible on true love. So Eden and Isaac got pushed and fell into the pool and drowned. Rest in peace. While it is heartbreaking, I don't see it as that shocking because I'm not rooting for Eden that hard, to be honest. At last, it's episode 13, The Word, which is a satisfying episode, except for the very unsatisfying ending. For the first half, there's not much going on, but it gets kind of climactic on the second half. I'm throwing in another spoiler alert. Yay. Okay, you skipped it? Alright. So Fred is becoming more and more unlikable. He's now slapping women and treating them like garbage. Look, I'm not trying to be like a nice guy or feminist or anything, but slapping women and treating them like garbage, it's wrong. Definitely wrong. Serena thought that kids should be taught the Bible, and she and a bunch of her friends thought so too. So they went up to the commanders and proposed the idea. Then she started to read the Bible in front of the commanders, and that's when some of her friends started to turn around and leave. And then guess what? Fred went up to Serena and let her get taken by guards and chopped her pinky finger off. Wow. And so Serena's character becomes more and more likable. Also, there's an unexpected scene where Emily stabbed Aunt Lydia, slapped her, and threw her down the stairs. I didn't see that coming at all. And her new commander, Lawrence, was supposed to take Emily somewhere and punish her, but instead, he didn't. And then we got the ending scene where Rita suddenly told June to get Holly and escape this place, so June saw other Marthas and were helping her and tried to get her out. And Serena saw that, but June told her that Holly couldn't grow up in this place in Gilead, so Serena let them go. Anyway, June and Holly actually managed to escape, and then Emily showed up with her commander, Lawrence. Emily asked, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm getting myself in deep shit." So Lawrence is actually a pretty interesting character. And then finally the truck came and June gave Emily her baby. And then June suddenly changed her mind and decided not to leave. So she patted the truck and the truck went away. That's heroic of June. I appreciate that. But if I were June, I would definitely get into the truck and get the hell out of this place. Then one day I'd probably return and save Nick, Serena, and Janine. So that decision that she made really got me bugging. Overall, I feel like this season is way more solid and entertaining than the first one, especially for the first 3 episodes. We were exploring unknown boundaries that were never explored before. And then there are also a lot of intense and dark scenes on this season. Clearly, the writers are more ambitious on the season. There's also a rape scene that Joseph Fiennes refused to film, and that just shows how the show was shooting for something darker and more brutal, really. That being said, not all storylines play a role in the show, like the whole Colony storyline and the whole Eden storyline. Both of them doesn't really do anything to the full picture, they just came and went. But still, Elizabeth Moss is good, Joseph Fiennes is good, Madeline Brewer is great, and Dowd is amazing. And the writing is powerful and captivating. The worst is episode 5, Seeds, and the best is episode 10, The Last Ceremony. I'm giving The Handmaid's Tale Season 2 an 8 to a 9 out of 10. So, have you watched The Handmaid's Tale Season 2 from 1 to 10? How much did you rate it? Like if you like it, and subscribe if you want more.